This anime has many routes or parallel universes, so let's start with the first. The story begins 2 years ago on Christmas Eve. Tachibana Junichi is happy because he is going on his first date, but unfortunately, she stood him up. 2 years later, Junichi is still wondering why the girl didn't go to their date, and he's so depressed that he sleeps inside the closet, which looks like a planetarium because he painted it with highlighters. One morning, his sister Mia threatens to go into the closet with him if he doesn't come out of there. They are late for school. On the way to school, they split up because they have an agreement not to be so close outside the house, so Mia goes with her friend and Junichi meets his best friend, Yumehara. Both are walking to school while talking about a new porn mag when they see the most beautiful and popular girl in school named Haruka, who has a reputation for rejecting everyone who confesses to her. After that, in the classroom, we meet Ayatsuji. She is the representative of the class who likes to do things that nobody likes, so she accepts all kinds of responsibilities in the class, and Kaoru, who has been friends with Junichi since middle school. They play rock, paper, scissors to decide who will go to the cafeteria for bread, and Junichi loses. Then he sees a freshman who seems to have trouble getting into the crowd to buy bread, so Junichi tells her that he'll buy it for her. This catches Haruka's attention since she seems like a very kind person for doing this, which leaves Junichi in the cloud since he never imagined that he could talk to Haruka. Later, Junichi looks for Yumehara because he wants to keep looking the porn mag, but in the library he meets Haruka again, who asks him to carry the books for her, until their friend Hibiki finds them and grabs the books. When they leave, Junichi remains in the clouds since she once again told him that he is very kind, and this makes him think that he can fall in love again. Days go by and Junichi is losing hope because Haruka is unreachable, but suddenly, while he was playing leapfrog with his friends, she climbs on his back because it reminded her of when she was a child. After that, they meet Mia and he introduces her, but Mia isn't interested and she leaves, so Haruka wants to be friends with her even more because she reminds her of a cat. Later, he asks Mia why she was so rude to Haruka, but she is upset with him because she assumes that he wants Haruka for her body. After that, Junichi sees Haruka alone and approaches her to give her a hand warmer, but Haruka jokingly asks him if he likes her, so he plucks up the courage to confess his feelings to her. Although Haruka rejects him, she tells him that she likes older boys, so Junichi returns home discouraged and locks himself in his closet again. The next day, Junichi wakes up with a dead face because he couldn't sleep at all, so Ayatsuji sends him to the infirmary since he looks terrible. But there he meets Haruka, who hadn't slept either because she was watching her late show TV. He notices that Haruka talks to him normally as if nothing was wrong, but she doesn't think it's something weird, although she apologizes for being inconsiderate with his feelings. But he assures her that they can get along, so the two return to treating each other normally. So he asks her what kind of guy she likes. Haruka tells him that she prefers someone tough but charismatic, which motivates Junichi to become what she wants. The next day, in physical education, he decides to practice pro wrestling with Yumehara because according to him it coincides with everything Haruka wants in a boy. At that moment, she appears in the gym since she just finished her class, so she asks them if she can join her wrestling practice, but Hibiki stops her because they have to change of clothes to go then. Haruka then tells them to go home together, and Junichi and Yumehara can't believe their luck. On the way home, Yumehara and Junichi talk about the reasons why they think Haruka is so popular, but she and Hibiki overhear them, so they start talking about the boys Haruka has rejected, and Yumehara takes pity on them because they won't have another chance. He thinks confessing twice is pointless. Junichi gets depressed when he hears this, so the next day he is sad again until Haruka appears and he acts normal again. This angers his sister Mia. She ignores Haruka and runs away. He follows her and asks her why she is so rude to Haruka. Mia tells him that it bothers her that he ignores her, and when Haruka arrives, his attitude suddenly changes, so she pours water on him to punish him for being a bad brother. During class, he stays thinking about the mood swings he has for Haruka, so Kaoru throws a paper ball at him to wake him up, but this turns into a paper ball fight in the classroom and the teachers punish them. Since Kaoru had to go to work, Junichi has to do all the work alone. At that point, Haruka appears and asks him for a girl's swimsuit, but he hasn't, so she drags him to the pool and she asks one of the girls for her bathing suit. After that, he stands on the wall alone, so the other girls in the swimming club think he is a stalker, but Haruka just comes back to clarify that he is with her. Then Haruka is about to get into the pool, but Hibiki stops her and kicks her out because only members of the swim club can be there. Haruka gets annoyed by how strict Hibiki is, so Junichi proposes that they go to the library to relax while they look at books with pictures of cute animals. She loves the idea, and while he is looking for a book with cute animals, he runs into Rihoko, who is looking for a book on dieting. Unfortunately, Haruka falls asleep while she waits for him, so he watches her sleep. After a while, she wakes up and sees that he brought the cute animal books, but he confesses his feelings to her again. Haruka is surprised since she didn't expect him to say it again, so Junichi promises not to say it again if it bothers her. But Haruka says that she doesn't mind, so he tells her that he will continue to like her. Haruka is embarrassed since she can't tell him no, seeing how serious he is, so she gives him a kiss on the forehead as a reward since his furrowed eyebrows look cute. The next day, Junichi acts very energetic in everything he does, whether it's studies or sports, so he catches the teacher's attention, and she asks him if it's for love. His surprised that she noticed it. At that moment, Kaoru and her friend Tanaka arrive and hear that he is in love, so Kaoru begins to make fun of him for having found love. Suddenly, Haruka sees them and gets upset, so she drags Jumiki to another place and asks him what he was doing with those girls, to which he is surprised since he did not think that she could be jealous, so he tells her that he was just talking about how happy he is to have met her. Haruka calms down and he asks if she can kiss him on the forehead again, but she says that his eyebrows don't look cute, they look perverted, so she tells him that it would be better if he kisses her this time, although with a condition, he has to take her to a place where no one can see them. Then, Junichi thinks about where they could go and comes up with the perfect place for them, so he leads her through the entire school to a water punk shed. Haruka is surprised that he managed to think of a place so quickly, and she tells him that he can kiss her anywhere but her mouth. Junichi is discouraged, but he quickly comes up with kissing her behind the knee as if he were a puppy, and he manages to convince Haruka that it is a good place, so he kisses her behind her knee, but he can't stop, so he starts to lick her and even tries to go up a bit to suck her thigh, so Haruka stops him since that place is still forbidden. He tells her that it was wonderful to kiss her there. At night, Junichi is so happy that his sister freaks out just looking at him, and he can't stop thinking about Haruka while in bed. The next day, he asks Haruka many times during the day for her permission to kiss her, so Haruka explodes and asks Hibiki for advice on what to do. Haruka tells her friend that it's about a puppy that wants to kiss her constantly, but this lie falls apart in seconds since Hibiki knows her very well, so her friend tells Haruka that if she likes it, she should let herself be spoiled by him. It doesn't matter if she is older, any guy would love to spoil his girl. The next day, Haruka gets carried away by what she feels and jumps on Junichi's back, and to her surprise, he loves it. Then they go to the cafeteria to eat something, but Haruka says that she is bored with the usual menu, so he decides to make her lunch more exciting. Then he brings her a ramen, which is probably the least exciting, but he makes her imagine a fictional situation. Haruka likes this idea, so she goes along and pretends to be a kidnapped girl who has her hands tied and hasn't eaten for days, so she begs him to feed her into her mouth, and he has to feed her reluctantly. All the students start to see them since they seem like a very sweet couple, but Hibiki says to leave them alone since they shouldn't bother two people in love. At the night, Haruka remembers lunch and blushes with excitement. The next day, Junichi is waiting for Haruka outside of the school, but Mia appears and invites him to go window shopping for Christmas that are on sale. But in reality, she just wants to take him so he can carry all her purchases. After a lot of shopping, to his surprise, he finds Haruka in the playground, so he leaves all her things to Mia and goes with Haruka. She is surprised that Junichi is around, so they play for a while in the arcade. He is aware that he has to ask her out on Christmas Eve, but he first invites her to go for a walk and takes her to the park where they met. Haruka doesn't know what he's talking about, but she remembers that she talked with a boy who helped her a lot to get over the death of her puppy, so she's surprised that he's that boy. Then he tells her that he was in that park because that's where they stood him up a year before, so he thanks her for showing him that he could feel happiness again, so he gets serious and asks her out on Christmas Eve. But Haruka tells him that she can't since she has plans with her family, so instead, she invites him to go to her family party with her. He doesn't hesitate to accept. Christmas Eve arrives and Junichi goes running since he was late, so Haruka tells him to go bathe since he can't show up all sweaty. He is surprised because his first time entering a hotel with a woman will be with Haruka, but in reality, they enter the hotel pool. In any case, he feels that he is lucky because he will be able to see Haruka in a swimsuit, and his expectations are not disappointed since she looks super hot in a bikini. After playing a lot in the pool, Haruka realizes that the meeting time has already passed, so Junichi asks her where they have to meet her family, and when he finds out that it is on the top floor of the hotel, he grabs Haruka by the hand and runs, but she tells him that he doesn't have to rush since her grandparents' flight was delayed one day, so there is no one waiting for them, and since she didn't want the room to be wasted, she decided to spend the night there with her boyfriend. They arrive at the room and Haruka is impressed by how beautiful it is, so she takes the opportunity to take a bath and tells Junichi that he can't peek. He keeps his promise, but later the light goes out and Haruka comes out upset wearing only a towel, since she does not understand why he did not try to see her while she was bathing. She feels that perhaps he does not like her enough, and that is why he stopped confessing his feelings to her. Then she starts to cry and says that she had never been in love with someone and doesn't know what to do. He apologizes and makes it clear to her how much he likes her just the way she is, so he asks her not to cry. Haruka agrees. If he calls her by her first name, he hugs her and says that he loves her and wants to be with her forever. Then they kiss and spend a happy Christmas Eve. 10 years later, they live a happy married life and are still just as childish as before. He is a detective and he swore to protect Haruka forever. One day, Hibiki goes to visit them and is surprised at how much in love they are. In another scenario, 2 years ago, Junichi met Kaoru after being stood up on his date. When she saw him so sad, she invited him to spend Christmas Eve with her and her mom. Currently, they are best friends. One day in class, Kaoru plays pranks on him like biting his ear in front of everyone. Then Yumehara arrives and they start talking as usual, but the class is about to start, so Ayatsuji tells them to calm down and Junichi supports her, so Kaoru gets upset and ends up knocking him down, so he sees her panties. Kaoru gets seriously angry and punches him so hard that knocks him out. After that, Kaoru stays taking care of him in the infirmary and tries to make him believe that he suddenly fainted. Obviously, this lie didn't last long, although he can't stay angry because he realizes that Kaoru was really worried about him. Junichi and Kaoru reminisce about their middle school days, and before leaving, she asks him to go to the flower beds at the back of the campus after school. Then, Junichi begins to think about what she might want to talk to him and thinks that maybe she is going to confess to him, but he can't imagine her doing that, so he keeps thinking of increasingly strange scenarios. Later, he goes to the agreed place and is disappointed since she was not alone. She only wanted him as a love counselor for her friend Tanaka. They need a man's perspective. So Tanaka tells them about her problems with a boy. Junichi listens to her and recommends her be direct and asks that boy to be clear about his feelings with a letter, to which Kaoru is surprised at how incredibly trustworthy he is. Then, Junichi and Kaoru walk home together, and she starts talking about how embarrassing her job is, so he tells her that maybe he'll see her one day, and she says that she will give him freebies. Then he confesses that for a moment he thought she was going to confess to him, so he feels a bit silly since this would be impossible, but this annoys Kaoru, and she leaves without giving him an explanation. Junichi does not understand why she was upset, so he decides to go see her at work and enters as a client, but since he has no money, he can only ask for a cup of coffee, although he cannot help but notice how well her work uniform looks on her, so Kaoru gets nervous every time she sees him and makes mistakes that she normally wouldn't, so she goes to hide and starts to think that maybe she likes him. Chapter 6. Kaoru. Later at her house, she thinks that maybe she feels something more than a friendship for Junichi, but dismisses the idea with a laugh because it seems ridiculous to her. The next day, Junichi sees Kaoru about to go off with one of the boys from their classroom, so he separates them and asks what happened. The boys say that they are innocent, and Tanaka tells him that it is her fault, so Junichi goes to Kaoru to ask her what really happened. It turns out that the boys made fun of Tanaka's letter since the boy who she likes ridiculed her, and Kaoru can't bear to see him despise something that Tanaka did so lovingly for him. Then he apologizes for stopping her, but Kaoru isn't worried since now that guy won't play with Tanaka's feelings so easily. Junichi is glad to hear this, then he takes advantage of the love talk to ask her if she likes someone and is surprised to hear that she does. So Kaoru asks him if he has someone special, but he says that he doesn't have anyone. Kaoru is a little disappointed and starts talking about the long relationship the two of them have, which hasn't changed after all this time, but he doesn't think it's a bad thing that they remain good friends. Although Kaoru doesn't think so, and since he's not sure if he wants to deepen their relationship, Kaoru takes the initiative and grabs him to bring their faces closer and pretends she's going to kiss him, but he moves and they both end up kissing. Both get super nervous because it was their first kiss, but Kaoru says that it doesn't count because she really didn't want to kiss him and it was just an accident, so she leaves and leaves Junichi without knowing what to think. Later, he is still upset and plans to take revenge, so he tells Kaoru to go to the library room. After waiting for her for a while, he thinks she won't come, but she appears and he takes her where there is no one and tells her that he will make her pay with tickles. Kaoru doesn't plan to make it easy for him, so he gives up since he couldn't force her, even if she wanted to. Suddenly, he sees one of the books and has another idea. He says that as punishment, he will give her a kiss on her belly button, and to his surprise, Kaoru does not resist. She wants him to act a little more manly and asks her directly, so he does it, and Kaoru makes him kneel down and he can revenge on her, but Junichi didn't expect a girl's skin to be so soft, so he can't help but get excited and starts licking it. Then, Kaoru feels a lot of tickles and she suffocates him with her sweater for going over the line with her. After that, they leave the library happy because she found it a pleasant experience, and since she still has a little time before going to work, she tells him to go for a walk in the park. But in the park, they see two kids wanting to retrieve their shuttlecock that got stuck in a tree. So Kaoru tells Junichi to bend down and she climbs on his shoulders. He blushes from feeling her warm thighs on his neck. Then he stands and she jumps up to the tree and reaches for the shuttlecock. The kids think she's so cool, though because of this, Kaoru has to leave because she's getting late for work. Then she promises Junichi that they will come another day with more time. As she leaves, he thinks that he has never seen her so cute. On the way to work, Kaoru sees her mom, but before she can talk to her, her mom leaves with an unknown man on what appears to be a date. Kaoru is shocked and starts crying. The next day, Junichi notices that Kaoru doesn't come to class and thinks that maybe it's because of what they did in the library, so he can't concentrate in class. To top it off, Tanaka doesn't know where she is either, so he goes looking for her all over the school during break. But after that, Tanaka tells him that the teacher called Kaoru's house because she was absent without justification, and her mother said that Kaoru hasn't come home since last night. He can't stand staying at school without knowing where she is, so he decides to run away to go look for her and goes through all the places they visited and realizes that they have shared many memories over the years. Meanwhile, Kaoru is crying on the beach, and the kids she helped yesterday see her and think that Junichi made her cry, so when they see him, they scold him and tell him that she is on the beach. He runs to the beach where the children saw her, but she had already left, so he goes to the last place he can think of, which is Kaoru's job. Fortunately, she was there, although he had almost no money, so he tries to get her attention from the window. Then, Kaoru notices him and goes out to talk to him at her break, so Junichi asks why she hasn't returned to her house and has missed school. Kaoru explains that she saw her mother with a man and doesn't understand why her mom seeks support from a stranger if she tries so hard to work and help around the house to show that they can do it alone. He tries to say something, but Kaoru continues to vent, making it clear that she doesn't doesn't want a new dad. So she breaks down in tears. Kaoru returns so he doesn't see her, and he tells her it's okay to cry, but she punches him since she seriously doesn't want him to see her weak moment. After that, Junichi tells her that she's not weak for crying, as it just shows how much she cares about her memories of her father. Then Kaoru accepts that she is making too much drama for nothing, since her mother won't forget her father for dating someone else, so she calls her mom and she is glad to know that Kaoru is alright. Later, he gives her chocolates that he bought while he was looking for her, which are her favorites, and he leaves looking cool, but at night, he starts to think about his feelings towards Kaoru since he sees her as a high school friend, but he can't deny that it strikes him as something else. Then he turns so red that he faints from thinking about Kaoru too much. The next day, Kaoru goes back to school and everything is back to normal. Meanwhile, Kaoru and Junichi's classmates think that there are feelings between them because of what happened yesterday, so Yumehara and Tanaka decide to come up with a plan to get them together. Yumehara pretends to cut his finger and sends Junichi for a band-aid, but Kaoru is in the infirmary with her waitress uniform since Tanaka is fixing her school skirt, so now they are alone. He tries to ask her if she has something to do on Christmas, and Kaoru tells him that she has plans. He gets sad, but she tells him that she has a date with him. It turns out that she invited herself, where she releases that Junichi did not ask her, for which he is relieved since he thought that she had other plans. On Christmas Eve, Kaoru spends a lot of time thinking about what to wear on her first date. She even thinks that she might need her fancy panties, but because of this, she is late, so Junichi stays waiting, and for a second, he thinks that he will be stood up again. Finally, Kaoru arrives and he scolds her for scaring him, but she tells him that she would never do that. They start their date walking, and she wants to go up the port tower, but he's afraid of heights, so he convinces her to continue walking, and they start to remember old anecdotes from their middle school days. Later, Kaoru tells him again that she wants to climb the port tower he doesn't want, so she drags him along and he almost dies of fear, but he pretends he's not afraid of heights. So Kaoru gives him the final test, which is to stand on a glass floor where you can see how high you are. He goes with her, but he panics as soon as he steps on the glass, so Kaoru grabs his hands to make him feel safe. They stay there for a while and it starts to snow. Then Kaoru gets carried away with her words and tells him that she always wants to be with him, and she appreciates all the good and bad things about him since she likes him. He feels terrible because she had to confess first, so he does the same and confesses his feelings, telling her that he wants to be with her forever, and they share a Christmas kiss. The date lasted so long that the buses no longer go to Kaoru's house, so Junichi tells her to sleep at his house because he won't let her sleep anywhere. After that, they arrive at his house and Kaoru enters quietly because Mia is at home. Kaoru is surprised at how tidy his room is, but she makes a lot of noise, so Mia enters to see what he is doing. But when she sees that no one is there, she deduces that he is watching porn videos. Bedtime comes and Kaoru doesn't plan to sleep on the floor, so she gets into bed with him. After a while, he is nervous, so he turns around to watch her sleep, but Kaoru is pretending and climbs on top of him and she kisses him, although she is so tired that she falls asleep in the middle of the kiss. The next day, Junichi takes her to her house on his bike. They are happy that their relationship has moved one step forward. In another possible scenario, Junichi would have lived through his trauma alone until now. One day, he sees a new transfer student who catches his eye named Sei. Sometime later, Yumehara convinces Junichi to buy his lunch, so he rushes to the dining room and bumps into Haruka. Sei is there too and sees his purse drop, so she runs around the school to deliver it to him. Then he tries to talk to her a bit, but Sei gets nervous and leaves him. After that, he returns to his classroom thoughtful and without food since he was late, but he wants to properly thanking Sei for returning his purse. So he goes to ask Mia if she knows her, and she does it. It turns out that Sei is her friend, so she makes the introductions and he thanks her properly, although he can't help but recognize the size of her breasts, and Mia thinks the same. Later, Junichi sees that Sei cannot cross the street because there is a dog that scares her, so he psychologically prepares himself to run from a giant dog, but it turns out to be a puppy. Anyway, Sei runs away as if her life depended on it. They go to Kaoru's restaurant to rest, and Sei is amazed at how beautiful her uniforms is, so he realizes that she wants to work, but she tells him that she has never worked, so she doesn't know what to do. So Junichi asks Kaoru about the job. She tells them that it's easy. You just have to go through an interview where they assess whether you're apt to talk to customers and bring food to the table. But he knows that talking to customers can be complicated for Sei, so he decides to start some practice sessions to help her. At his house, he will act as an instructor and Mia as a customer. Stubby teaches her how to speak loudly since Yumehara told him that in the family restaurant, they always receive customers with a strong welcome. He teaches her how to contract her stomach to raise her voice, but as much as Sei puts force into her stomach, she can't speak with an acceptable force. Then he grabs her stomach to see how she is breathing, but because of her nerves, she forgets to breathe and he ends up fainting. Then they switch the training. She has to practice how to bring coffee to the tables, but Sei is very nervous, so she ends up spilling the hot coffee on Junichi's pants, so he quickly takes them off, but Mia enters and misinterprets the situation and gives a scratch to his brother for being a pervert. After that, they explain what happened to Mia, and the siblings accompany Sei to her house. Then Mia has the great idea to play rock, paper, scissors, and whoever loses must carry the winner. Junichi loses, so he must give Sei a piggyback ride. She climbs on top of him and he feels her big breasts ghosts press on his back, so he wants to always lose in this game. He doesn't want to waste time, so he makes Sei keep practicing how to raise her voice, and this is the start of their strong friendship. After 3 weeks, Sei manages to have fluent conversations, although only with the vending machines, so Kaoru says that they have a long way to go, but for Juniki, Sei's advance is a success, so he thinks it's already time to move to the next level. He tells her to go ask the cafeteria lady for something, but she gets so nervous that not a word comes out, so he recommends that she imagine them as talking vending machines, and as strange as it sounds, it works. Sei manages to engage in a small and fluent conversation with the cafeteria lady, for which Junichi is happy and completely ignores that she did not get to ask for anything. After school, they continue their training in the chemistry room since Mia doesn't want them to be at her house after the coffee incident. Today, they will practice agility. Sei must change her clothes quickly, since according to Junichi's zero work experience, she might need these skills in real life. Sei changes into gym clothes and a swimsuit in record time, but in her hurry, she slips on top of him and he ends up grabbing her breast. To top it off, Mia walks in at the worst possible time, so she scratches him again for being a pervert. On the weekend, Junichi invites Sei and Mia to the hot springs since he came up with an idea to train her, but he can't help but admires Sei's swimsuit. Since Mia gave her tips based on the secret magazines of her brother, then Junichi speeds up the training. It turns out that there is a particular foot bath, which uses little fish to clean dead skin, and as soon as they put their feet in, they start to tickle them, so he starts the interview in extreme situations. But he gets nervous when he hears Sei's erotic moans because of the little fish, so he ends up passing out. On the way back, Sei wants to continue training, so they go to Junichi's house, but they don't train, they start playing Monopoly. After that, Mia has the wonderful idea that Sei stays the night, and fortunately, Sei's father accepts, so the two girls take a bath together, while Junichi listens to everything from the outside. Sei comes out first with Maya's pajamas, and he is surprised that she fits so well, so he wishes she was his little sister so he would see her every day, but Sei gets upset because she doesn't want to be his little sister. The next day, Junichi continues to train her as usual from very early on, but at lunchtime he remains thoughtful, since he does not know what Sei means when she says that she does not want to be his little sister. Yumehara is surprised that he doesn't get it, and even Haruka tells him that's pretty obvious, but she tells him that Sei surely wants to be his older sister or mother, so Juniki is even more confused than before. After school, Sei has her job interview at a different restaurant than Kaoru, so she asks him to accompany her, since she is very grateful for all his support. Obviously, he goes with her and waits while she is interviewed. Happily, Sei manages to pass the interview, so she is even more grateful, since she doesn't think it would have been possible without his support, and he tells her that it was all thanks to her hard work, but Sei still feels that she has a lot to learn, so she asks him continue to be her instructor, and that he delightedly accepts. After a few days, Yumehara, Mia, Kaoru, and Junichi go to Sei's restaurant, and Kaoru is surprised at how cute the waitress uniforms are. Then she understands why her restaurant has been losing customers lately, although neither she nor the boys see her looking cute in one of those. On the weekend, Sei invites Juniki to the amusement park, and since he is afraid of heights, they go to other attractions such as the carousels or the hero play, where they mistake Sei for an elementary school girl and include her in the play, which caused Junichi a lot of laughter. After that, while they were eating together, Sei realizes that they look like a couple, so she gets nervous but gathers the courage to ask Juniki to accompany her in the festival's couples contest, and he happily accepts. After a couple of attempts from Sei to try to ask him to hold her hand, Junichi realizes what she wants, so he takes the initiative and takes her hand by surprise. The feelings they have for each other begin to develop. At night and alone in his closet, Juniki thinks about his feelings towards Sei, but he is still insecure because he remembers what happened to him 2 years ago. They continue to go on other dates. One day they go to a particular cafeteria because Sei wanted them to share a banana parfait. Supposedly, if a couple manages to eat it all, their love will last forever. They ask for the famous banana parfait, and when he sees that it is huge, he tries hard to eat it, is motivated to be the best couple in the contest, and finally they finish the parfait. The days go by quickly, and the couples contest arrives, and Mia praises them because they look very good together. Then she wishes them all the luck in the world, and they will need it, since there are tough opponents like Haruka with Hibiki, disguised as a couple from the Wild West, or Yumehara, who showed up with a big fish as his partner, but Juniki and Sei are dressed up as a new lead couple, so they impress everyone. After the speeches, the winners are announced, and unfortunately, the judges chose Haruka and Hibiki as the winners. Although Haruka says that the best couple is Juniki and Sei, Sei feels very lucky to have gotten second place, and she thinks it's all because of him, although he knows it was because of how cute she looks in her wedding dress. As a prize, they were given a ticket to the cinema in a private room. So they go the next day, but Juniki is surprised. Sei received advice from Mia again, so she's wearing a sexy dress. The movie is about love and has a lot of prestige because they say that the director and the protagonist were lovers, so the director managed to capture the theme of love very well. After the movie, Junichi wants to catch Sei's beauty just like the movie caught the actresses, but they end up on top of each other and Sei begins to cry with happiness for all the time they spent together. So he hugs her, since he's also very happy. Then he gathers courage to confess his feelings and Sei tells him that she feels the same. So they kiss and Sei says again that she is very happy, but this time with a smile. So Juniki faints from excess of mo. Then they go to spend Christmas Eve in front of the tree, and under the snow. So they create a relationship that lasts for a long time, with Junichi continuing to record Sei's beauty in front of the camera. Another possible scenario begin. Junichi meets a girl named Ai while returning from his failed date and does not see her again for 2 years. Currently, he lives his normal life, but one day, while he is returning home with Yumehara, he feels like going to the bathroom. So they go to the park to find a safe place, but there they meet Ai. She takes a big leap from the swing, so they gawk at her underwear. Ai realizes this and accuses them of being perverts and jokes that she will accuse them with the police, but it was all a joke, so Junichi and Yumehara can breathe again. They believe it because she said it very convincingly. The next day, Junichi goes to school with Miya, but suddenly his friend Kaoru greets him by groping his butt. So he gets upset and decides to greet her back, but Kaoru runs away, yelling that the Junichi is a pervert, so Miya stops her brother from making a fool of himself, but he realizes that Ai was watching them, so his reputation fell even lower. For days, Junichi keeps running into Ai and making a fool of himself. One day at lunch, he can't decide what to order and Ai has to rush him in front of everyone. Another day, he chases a kitten to the pool and he bumps into Ai, who thinks he is spying on the girls coming down to see up their skirts. Junichi gets nervous and tries to explain what is happening, but Ai doesn't believe him, so she says that she will give him what he is looking for. She will lift her skirt. Then Junichi covers his eyes, but Ai insists, so he spreads his fingers and sees that Ai is wearing her swimming suit under his scholar uniform. So he is a little relieved, although he is a little blushed too. Ai tells him that he is pretty cute, and that is why she lets him see under her skirt, since she would not allow it to any pervert. But what catches Junichi's attention is that she knows that he is Maya's brother, since she deduced it from his last name. Then she tells him to behave because she doesn't want her friend's brother to get caught by the cops. Later that night, Miya asks her brother what he did to Ai, since Ai asks her what kind of person Junichi is, but he doesn't pay much attention to her as he's happy reading his manga. Then Miya says if he buys something in the shopping district to save the lucky drawn coupon for her, since she wants to win the trip to Hawaii, but her brother pays no attention to her, so she writes it on his face while he sleeps. The next day, he only realizes it when he bumps into Ai. Now he understands why the other students laughed when they saw him, even Ai laughed a bit, for which she apologizes. Then she asks him if he is free in the afternoon, since she wanted to take advantage of the offers in the commercial district and wants him to help her carrying her things, and he accepts. After that, as a thank you, she gives him the lucky drawn coupons that she won when buying items limited specials. But Junichi doesn't win the trip to Hawaii, but at least he gets 500 yen. So he decides to use it to buy ubenyaki for both of them, since he won with her lucky drawn coupon. Ai accepts, and they go to the beach to eat it. Then Ai starts talking about everything she does after school, and Junichi is surprised since he doesn't do anything in comparison. Then he picks up a bottle that was thrown away and realizes that there is a lot of garbage on the beach, so he gives it everything so that nothing escapes him. The next day, Yumehara tells Junichi that there is a new assistant in the library, and rumors say that she is quite cute, so the two plus Kaoru go to the library to confirm the rumor, but there are many people blocking the view. For their good luck, I had to return a book and ask for another, so they go with her and manage to corroborate the information. Indeed, she is pretty. After that, Junichi realizes that I asked for a math book, so she confesses that she is not doing very well in that subject and has to study very hard, so she does not have to take extra classes, since this would prevent her from continuing in the swimming club. Then he offers to help her because his only strong point is math, and Kaoru and Yumehara can confirm this. Ai accepts, and she is surprised since she didn't expect him to really be that good at math, although she accepted his offer because he seems childish to her, but Junichi doesn't understand what she means. It turns out that she's having trouble dealing with her younger brother and hoped that he would serve her as practice to figure out how to treat her brother, since he is male and childish. But this did not work, so at least she will continue studying for her exam. Later, at his house, Junichi asks Miya if she knows what Ai's little brother looks like, but she doesn't even know that she has a brother, so he can't find a way to help her. Then he continues to read his manga. The next day, he arrives late, for which the teacher scolds him for not taking his punctuality seriously, and he makes excuses that he is very involved in his manga of heroes, and before he leaves, the teacher hit him with a book, for which Junichi is surprised, but it gives him an incredible idea to help Ai with her problem, although the teacher believes that she managed to motivate him with this new method. Then Junichi runs to talk to Ai, but she's with Maya and Sei, so the conversation turns to how big Sei's breasts are, and this makes Ai jealous, so she leaves without listening to him. Later, he wants to talk to Ai, so he goes to the swimming club, but he gets caught by the girls. Ai goes over to see what's going on, and Junichi takes the opportunity to make an apology attempt with a speech about how he appreciates even more a body that has been trained with sweat and tears. So Kimpiki realizes that he went to talk to a specific girl, but Ai tells him that they can talk later. After the club, they go to the beach to talk, and Junichi tells them that sometimes children behave badly to get attention, so she just has to spoil her little brother more and things will improve. Ai thanks him for all the help he has given her, and as a reward reward, she gives him a toy that her little brother Ikuo did not want since it was from last year, and according to Ikuo, has gone out of fashion. Then, Junichi makes Ai try it on, and he teaches her the choreography of the character, which draws the attention of some children who were there playing. They ask Ai to show them more choreography with a toy. In the end, they end up giving it to the children, so they can play with each other, since neither she nor Junichi are going to use it, but now she already feels more confident to deal with children, for which she thanks him. At night, I can't stop thinking about Junichi, so she looks forward to the next day to see him again. The next day, Ai is doing extra practice at the club, but her times don't improve. Meanwhile, Junichi goes down the street and a person gives him 3 tickets for a new amusement park that is about to open, so he invites Ai and her little brother Ikuo, but Ikuo couldn't go because he caught a cold at the last moment, so they end up having a date alone. After the roller coaster, Junichi asks her to go on something that has to do with height, so they go through other attractions such as Teacups Ride or shooting games. Then they go to a haunted house that catches their eye, but this isn't just any haunted house, as Junichi keeps seeing ghosts as they go. And in the last hallway, an Egyptian god appears and turns Ai into a bowl of ramen. This bowl smelled and looked delicious, so Junichi can't help but want to eat it. But when he's about to take the first sip, Ai returns to normal, and she sees that he is sucking her finger. She can't believe that he was about to eat her. After that, they go to the park where they met, and Ai tells him that she enjoyed the amusement park, even though it was a weird one. Even so, it helped her de-stress from the fact that she can't improve her times at the swimming club. Then she tells him that she wants the two of them to use one swings. Junichi ends up in a privileged position to see things he shouldn't, so Ai sits on him to prevent him from peeking up her skirt, but having him so close she can't help but kiss him. This leaves him in thought all the next day, but he is surprised to see that Ai acts so normal. Although when he mentions it, Ai immediately changes the subject to ask him to go to the shopping district again. Later, Junichi stays waiting for her after school, but all the girls from the club leave before Ai, so he goes in, but he sees Ai arguing with Hibiki. Then she runs away tearfully. He chases her and gets into the pool to reach her. Then Ai breaks down crying in his arms, and Hibiki leaves the job of calming her down to him. It turns out that Ai was benched because her times were improving, but Junichi knows that she works hard even outside of the pool, so she should be sad about her effort. Then Ai asks him why he went for her. When he saw her crying and he tells her that he didn't think so, he just felt that he couldn't leave her alone at that moment. So Ai is glad that he was there. She takes the opportunity to ask him if he has time on Christmas Eve. He said yes, but then she says that he would be useful. To help her in the swimming club's food cart, they will make Odin. Junichi gladly accepts. The day of the festival arrives and Hibiki teaches Junichi and Ai everything they have to do to be able to take care of the Odin food stall, and she leaves since she has to take Haruko with her, who does not stop eating all the food she can, or else there will be nothing left to sell. This stall is quite famous, so they have a lot of customers, but the girls of the tea club are outraged to see that a man is helping at the swimming club's stall, so they think their food level has gone down. Ai tells them that this has nothing to do with it, since she is the one who received the teachings from Hibiki herself, so they will have to repeat that after trying the dishes they prepare. The two girls accept the challenge, and it is undoubtedly the flavor they remember from years ago, so they apologize for being too early to judge, and as an apology they promise to promote them at their own stall. Suddenly, the teacher arrives drunk and interrupts them. It turns out that the girls of the tea club have a tradition of giving sweet sake to the teachers during the festival, but Ryoko didn't know that she shouldn't give sweet sake to Tahakashi-sensei because she gets drunk very fast, so Ayatsuji orders 2 students to take her to the infirmary. Ai gives a free bowl of Odin to Ayatsuji as thanks. The festival continues, and now they have even more customers, so they sell everything they had, but Ai saved a couple of plates for the two of them, so Junichi is motivated to finish the cleaning so he can eat with her. After that, Hibiki and the other third years girls tell them not to worry, as they will clean as payment for taking care of the stall themselves, and now they only have to worry about having fun. They go to another place to be alone. He asks her why she asked him if he had free time on Christmas Eve, so Ai says she will show him. For this, she takes him quite far since they have to take a bus and enter a forest, so Junichi begins to imagine possible scenarios in which it is either an erotic scene or a horror movie. He'd wish the erotic one and blushes. Ai realizes that he is getting horny ideas, so she tells him that it is nothing like that, since they are only hot springs that are on her grandfather's land, so they are her private waters to relax. After that, Junichi enters first while Ai changes her clothes, and then she enters at the hot water saying that under her towel, she has the swimming suit on, since otherwise they could not speak normally, but even so they are nervous being so close. Then Ai tries to break the ice by saying that a lot has happened in a very short time, and he agrees. Then Ai gathers courage and confesses her feelings, and Junichi says that he is deeply in love with her too. Ai is embarrassed and goes into the water, but when he approaches her, she jumps on him and her towel falls, relieving her body. He is speechless, so she kisses him, and they spend a happy Christmas in the hot springs. Sometime later, Junichi becomes a boyfriend who likes to be pampered, and Ai is happy spoiling him as much as he wants. In another scenario, 2 years ago, Junichi takes his childhood friend named Ryoko to buy a gift for the girl he likes for his first date. This was a bit hard for Ryoko because she has a one-sided crush on him. In any case, she had fun accompanying him, but when she found out that he had been stood up, she suffered just like him. Now in the present, she's quite careless, and one day her friend Kanae has to help her wake up, but she forgot her PE uniform, so she returns home and it's late to go to school. So she decides to take a shortcut and go through a hole in the back fence of the school, but she gets stuck because she gained weight. Fortunately for her, Junichi also wanted to use the shortcut and helps her to get out, but with the impulse, she falls on top of him, and he tells her that she is heavier than before. At that moment, the school bell rings, so Junichi hurries and goes through the hole in the fence, and Ryoko is left alone without knowing how to get there. Later, Ryoko decides to go on a diet. Her friend Kanae recommends the air diet, which you imagine you eat and do a lot of exercise after eating air. Ryoko says that she better start the diet the next day, but her friend doesn't believe her because she is about to eat a homemade muffin. But at that moment, Haruka's frisbee hits her on the back of the head. Haruka apologizes, and Ryoko tells her that everything is fine because the muffin is safe. When Haruka and Hibiki leave, she realizes that they have a very nice figure, so she decides to start the diet as soon as possible and gives the other muffins to Junichi. Then Kanae invites him to skate along with Ryoko. Junichi isn't too sure about going, but Yumehara convinces him because he senses that his friend likes Ryoko. After that, Ryoko goes to the tea club, and her friends had brought some pretty delicious buns, so she grabs several and then tells them that she started a diet, which leaves them speechless since what she is doing is the opposite of a diet. Meanwhile, Junichi and Yumehara go to hide. They have a new book with naked women, but they hear an intruder on the stairs, and it is Ryoko, who had hidden to eat without being judged. On their way home, Junichi tells her that with what she did, her diet has already failed again, but Ryoko is determined to success, so he has no choice but to support her when he sees how determined she is. Then they just pass by the park where they played when they were children, so Ryoko gets in on the nostalgia, but now the games are no longer her size, so her butt ends up getting stuck in the slide. At night, she weighs herself and realizes that she continues to gain weight, so she does a few stretches and gets tired. She leaves the rest of the session for tomorrow. The next day, she is late again, so she faces her archenemy, the hole, but this time she manages to get through easily since Junichi enlarged the hole earlier, so she can get through easily, although she credits her very intense 30-second training session. The next day, they go skating, and Ryoko isn't very good at it, so she stays in a corner so she doesn't fall. Kanae is going to try to get her to skate, but they both fall, so she leaves her in charge of Junichi so they can have fun together. Then he tries to make her skate, but she is not able to control herself, so he tries to stop her, but instead he grabs her breasts, so he releases her. But she falls, and he ends up seeing everything under her skirt. Despite everything, she had fun and discovered that Junichi does not have gloves, so she now knows what to give him for Christmas. The next day, Ryoko goes to applying for a spot for her club at the festival, and Ayatsuji helps her. Meanwhile, Junichi is still impressed by how Ryoko's breasts felt, but the tea club's president sees him and asks him to help them to carry some things to the tea club. After that, the girls of the tea club gave him tea in gratitude, but he wonders how they know him, and they explain that it's because Ryoko doesn't stop talking about him. At that moment, Ryoko arrives and is surprised to see him there, but she doesn't care and decides to rest in the kotatsu that they just installed. Then the school bells rings, so the girls ask him to help them at the festival, since they need some muscle, and he accepts without problems. Later, they tell Ryoko that he is qualified as a possible future member of the club, but she doesn't know if he will accept. Although the girls in the club have her methods, so Ryoko doesn't have to worry about this. The festival arrives, and Junichi goes as promised to help. He has to help them carry a sweet sake container. After that, they ask him to join the tea club, but as expected, he refuses, so they send him to distribute flyers with Ryoko. She is wearing a cute kimono, and he thinks she looks pretty. While walking, Ryoko once again tries to get him to join the club, but Junichi isn't interested, so she stops insisting, and they just hand out flyers to everyone on the gates. After a while, Ayatsuji's voice catches their attention. She is presenting a giant Christmas tree, so they spend the rest of the festival admiring it. After a while, they go to rest in a park and talk about their childhood. Then Ryoko takes the opportunity to give him a Christmas present. She knitted woolen gloves for him, and although they are a little tight on his fingers, he is happy for the gift and tells her that they are very warm, showing it by cradling her cheeks. He feels a bit bad because he doesn't have any gifts for her, so he says that she can ask for anything, but Ryoko doesn't know what to ask for, so her gift is pending. The next day, the tea club invite Junichi to an outdoor tea ceremony, and then he tastes how delicious it can be prepared correctly, and it is really elegant if they do outside, but Ryoko prefers to be inside with the heat of the kotatsu because the wind is too cold. Junichi is surprised by the pleasant experience that an outdoor tea ceremony is, since it is a totally different vibe, so the president tells him that it is something they do every year to receive new members, although lately they only added to Ryoko since it rained that day, and if it wasn't for her, the snacks they prepared would have gone bad. They see him quite interested in tea, so they teach teach him how to prepare it properly, but his technique is clumsy since it is not the same as the president. Ryoko tells him that if he wants, she can teach him, but Ryoko isn't very good at it either. Later, Junichi and Ryoko go to eat something at the Kaoru's restaurant, but she refuses to order something since she is on a diet, although he feels uncomfortable since she does not stop looking at his cake with sad puppy eyes. Then Ryoko asks him if he will do something on the new year, and since he is free, she invites him to go to the shrine. This is her gift that she wants, and he happily accepts. So Ryoko's spirits rise to heaven and take his cake. So he plays a joke on her saying that Kane is watching her from the window. Then she turns scared, but there's no one there. Then he pokes her cheek with his finger, and she gets angry and sucks his finger in revenge and says that she will later compensate the cake with exercises. At night, Yumehara calls Junichi to spend the last night of the year watching porn videos, but he already has plans with Ryoko, so Yumehara is surprised that they have become so close. Junichi insists that she is just a childhood friend. Meanwhile, Ryoko is congratulated by Kane for her date with Junichi in New Year, but she has to keep her promise to exercise, even though she gets tired after a couple of push-ups. The last day of the year arrives and the bell rings while Junichi is taking a bath, so he has to go out in a towel and is surprised to see Ryoko, but to his bad luck, the towel falls, so she sees him naked. After that, Ryoko notices that Junichi got a lot better at making tea and feels a bit bad since he's probably better than her. So he starts bragging about his techniques, which annoys Maya, and Ryoko calms the environment with some appetizers that she is practicing, but this goes against her diet even though she makes them with little sugar. Anyway, this will be something she will worry about later, so she enjoys as much as she can. Then she dances with Mia, and she is surprised at how well Ryoko dances and sings, so she believes that she could be a great idol. But Ryoko does not want that, although Junichi watches her in delight as she sings and dances like an idol. Hours go by and Mia falls asleep, so he says to Ryoko to wake her up while he goes to change clothes to go to the shrine. But when he returns, Ryoko had also fallen asleep, so he joins them and falls asleep. The next day, Ryoko wakes up and realizes that they haven't gone to the shrine yet, so she wakes everyone up to go as early as possible. So they walk almost alone since few people go after midnight, and Ryoko hangs up her wishes, which are that her diet is successful, get new members for the tea club, and above all, that her feelings reach Junichi. Winter break ends and Ryoko hasn't done anything to advance her relationship with Junichi, so Kane begins to make all kinds of strategies to generate favorable situations, but Ryoko doesn't think it's necessary since this type of relationship is the same as she's always had with him since they were children, and she is fine with their relationship as it is. After that, she goes with Junichi to talk for a while as usual, and then they go to the tea club. When they arrive, they are surprised that no one is there, although not by much, because after a while the two girls arrive, and it turns out that they were trying to recruit Haruka to take advantage of her popularity, but they were unsuccessful. The club will be dissolved if they do not get one more member. They had to take desperate measures, so they asked Junichi to help the club as a president, but it was just a joke. Then he begins to consider seriously since Ryoko would feel very sad if they dissolve the tea club, where she has had so many nice experiences with the two girls, although Ryoko still does not give up and plans to give everything to prevent the club from disintegrating. Valentine's Day is about to arrive, and Ryoko plans to give Junichi a chopped cream instead of chocolate. On the other hand, he goes to the club to talk to the president since he is worried about Ryoko being left alone, but he doesn't want to admit it, so the president tries to find the true, but he run away to not confess his true feelings. Later, Ryoko tells Kane what she will give to Junichi, and it turns out that the tea club's president told her that it was a dessert to give it to the love of your life. It was just a joke, but Kane doesn't say anything because the intention is what matters. In the afternoon, Yumehara clings to Junichi since the two of them don't receive chocolates, but this year, Junichi goes with Ryoko, so Yumehara is left alone seeking comfort from whoever. Junichi is surprised by the chopped cream that she gave him and how delicious they taste, so he asks Ryoko if she likes someone since she is quite popular among the boys, but she doesn't know what to answer and smears her cheek with sweet cream, so Junichi wipes it with his finger, making her smile. Weeks and months go by where Ryoko's diet continues to have bumps. Junichi helps out at the tea club, and the third-year girls graduate, so Ryoko apologizes for not getting more members to keep the club going, but the girl says that they're not upset since it was fun being with her for 2 years and Ryoko can't help but break down in tears. Then Junichi enters the club room to say goodbye to the two girls and tell them that he decided to join the club to take care of it and Ryoko, for which she now cries with happiness. Time after, the opening ceremony arrives and both were able to organize it correctly, so the president and vice president visit them and congratulate them, and Ryoko can now continue with her day-to-day as she is happy to have Junichi by her side, even though their relationship haven't evolved into anything romantic. In another possible scenario, Junichi remains depressed in his first year, so Yumehara accompanies him on Christmas Eve, and they promise to succeed in love the following year. But despite that, the next year continues as normal. One day, Junichi's classroom have to pick a representative for the festival, and since no one wants to, Ayatsuji decides to do it, but the teacher doesn't want her to do it alone since she is already the representative of the class, so Junichi offers himself as a second representative to help her in any way he can. His friends are surprised about this, so they think that he is going after Ayatsuji, but Junichi says says that this way he's forced to go to the festival on Christmas Eve. Even Mia is surprised that her lazy brother has decided to take on extra responsibility, although she is happy because now she will have a bit of influence in the committee's decisions. Everyone fills out the applications form for the festival, and Junichi is surprised that Ayatsuji arranged everything to make the job easier, but he feels a bit useless because he couldn't help at all. So Ayatsuji asks him for a favor. Then she takes him to the supply room to classify everything they have, but the door has a trick to open, and it doesn't open from the inside. So she tells him not to close it, but Junichi opens a window, and the wind ends up closing the door. He apologizes because they are locked up because of him, but Ayatsuji remains calm since someone will come for them. Now they just have to do their job. While they work, they take the opportunity to talk and get to know each other better, but hours go by and no one comes for them. Later, they finish organizing everything into their good luck. Mia wants to go in to look for something inside this room, and she manages to open the door for them. Maya and Sei pick up what they wanted and close the door again, so Junichi almost had a heart attack, but happily it was just a joke, and they open it again. At night, Junichi walks Ayatsuji home and they run into Ayatsuji's older sister, who congratulates her on getting a boy. Then Ayatsuji says goodbye to him and takes her sister away, so she won't say another word. The next day, several clubs are upset because their requests were not fulfilled as they wanted, and Junichi does not know what to do, so he runs to find Ayatsuji, who was in the pool. It turns out that she is helping the teachers with an extra P class for those who are absent, so she won't be able to go right away, but she promises that she will as soon as she's free. Then he leaves a little calmer and realizes how amazing Ayatsuji is for everything she does, and he's not the only one since Haruka keeps spying on her because she thinks that Ayatsuji is amazing too. At the classroom, Junichi continues with the work of the committee, and he realizes that there is a notebook, so he begins to read it and is surprised since it has very precise orders, but Ayatsuji just arrives. She is wet and is wearing her swimsuit. That is her notebook, and since he has it in his hand, she grabs him by the tie and asks if he read what's inside. Ayatsuji presses her body more against his, and he tries to shake her off and accidentally touches her chest. So she realizes that he read a bit, so Ayatsuji forces him to go to another place outside the school since she can't let anyone know her secret, and says that she regrets to lose him as a partner. Junichi starts to get scared and tells her that he doesn't know why those notes about the committee are so important, so Ayatsuji is surprised since she thought that he had seen other things that she scribbled. Then she calms down and lets it pass, but now Junichi knows that she has a double personality, so she forces him to keep that secret or she will tell everyone that he touched her breast and ruin his reputation. So Junichi accepts, but wants to know what would have happened if he read what she hides so much, and she tells him that she would not have been able to go back to school, even though she would not have allowed the person who read it to go back to school either. The next day, Junichi is still scared, although he's curious to know if anyone would believe him, so he goes to Yumehara to tell him, but Ayatsuji appears and Junichi is exposed. So she takes him to her workroom and interrogates him to find out what he was trying to tell Yumehara about her. Ayatsuji tells him that she won't allow it and gives him a lot of tasks and always has him around, so he ends up tired, but little by little he starts to pick up the pace. After that, he starts to worry about Ayatsuji since she does more work than anyone else, so he goes to hand her a couple of drinks and offers his support since it's too late. But this surprises Ayatsuji, since even though he knows her true personality, he acts friendly. Then Junichi explains that despite how she is, he wants to support her. So Ayatsuji tells him to rest so he won't be late and embarrass the representatives. Junichi goes home, but he gets the impression that Ayatsuji wants to stay late so she doesn't return to her house. The next day, Ayatsuji gets sick, so she doesn't go to school, and he goes to visit her at her house to give her something to eat. But he meets Ayatsuji's sister. She is glad that someone is going to see her little sister, but since she doesn't talk to her much, she tells him to deliver the things to Ayatsuji himself. After a while, she awakes and is scared to see Junichi in her room, but is glad that he has gone to visit her and tells him to not to worry since it is just a slight fever. She will go to school the next day. Then Junichi leaves to let her rest and talks a bit with Ayatsuji's sister, but he realizes that there isn't a very good relationship between these two, which seems strange to him. The next day, Ayatsuji recovers, so she goes back to school and answers questions about the festival, and her first applicants are Hibiki with Haruka. She wants Hibiki to wear a sexy swimsuit to highlight her figure, but she is not very sure since it is a public festival. Then Junichi begins to imagine what it will be like, but Ayatsuji stops him before he imagines something dirty, although Ayatsuji does not forbid them to do so if it is in moderation since there will be people from outside the school. After school, Junichi meets Ayatsuji and realizes that a dog peed on her foot, so he carries her to the sink so she can wash, which is quite embarrassing for her, although she seems to be having fun at the same time. That night, she stays thinking about him, which is surprising for her because it is the first time she has thought of someone, but this distracts her and she loses studying time, so she doesn't like it at all. The next day, the teacher recommends that Ayatsuji cancel some things she is pending because she is running out of time and has already fainted from overexertion, but she refuses and convinces the teacher to give her one last chance. Junichi agrees with the teacher, but he recommends getting help from the other students. She doesn't like it at first, but she recognizes that it is the only way to achieve everything. Fortunately, Fortunately, they get the support of many students, but a group of girls start talking bad about Ayatsuji since she spends a lot of time with Junichi, and they think they are wasting time flirting. Then Ayatsuji and Junichi arrive from a meeting, and a girl from this group confronts Ayatsuji for the delay they are having this year compared to last year, even though Ayatsuji did it alone, and she blames everything on her because she only spends time with Junichi as if they were a couple. Junichi says that Ayatsuji only helps him because he is inexperienced, so they don't let him speak. Ayatsuji loses control and her dark side comes out. She humiliates them and says that they have not achieved anything in life, and even now they spend their time speaking ill of those who carry out the festival. After that, Junichi and Ayatsuji goes to the shrine, and he says that she went a bit too far, but Ayatsuji doesn't want to talk about it, and instead, she burns her notebook because she wants Junichi for her. He is the only one with whom she has fun and feels happy. Then she asks him to be hers, and he accepts, and they close the deal with a kiss. The next day, Ayatsuji is back to normal, but Junichi realizes that the group of mean girls want to hit Ayatsuji in gym class with the excuse of playing dodgeball, so Kaoru and Tanaka take her side. They do not like that the game is all against Ayatsuji alone. Then Junichi also joins since he will not allow her to be humiliated. After school, the ones who stay to help at the festival are a few, but Ayatsuji is fine with the ones who stayed, so they work as hard as they can until it gets dark and everyone goes home except Ayatsuji. So Junichi goes to see her and says that they need the mean girls to finish on time because with so few of them they won't make it. But Ayatsuji gets upset since she doesn't want to apologize to that group, and when he insists, she starts to cry and slaps him because she is disappointed that her boyfriend does not understand her feelings and tries to assume that he knows everything about her. Even though she said all this, the next day she reconciles with a group of mean girls, and Kaoru tells Junichi that she even started crying in front of everyone, and the mean girls had no choice but to help her again with the festival. Later, he asks her what happened to what she said last night. Ayatsuji tells him that the stubborn girl who refused to do whatever it takes to achieve her goals is gone, so now the festival will be a success. But Junichi is confused since he doesn't understand what she means when she says that the other girl is gone. Thanks to everyone's work, they can finish the work on time, so Ayatsuji thanks everyone for their hard work, but Junichi still can't forget the conversation he had a while ago, so he distances himself from Ayatsuji a bit since he doesn't know what to think about her. Finally, the festival begins and they both have some free time, but Junichi goes his own way and wonders why Ayatsuji's new attitude worries him so much, since it's not that he doesn't like it, but he finds it too strange. Suddenly, he finds Yumehara with a lighter, so he thinks that he will do something crazy for having failed another year in love, but in reality, he was just burning a love letter from many years ago. Then they become melancholic and Junichi apologizes for having failed again, although Yumehara tells him that it is still too early for him to give up, so he has to give it his all until the end. Later, Ayatsuji dresses up as a Santa and starts distributing gifts to all the students, but a kid who attended ignore her because he doesn't like her. Then the festival ends and everyone is happy and joyful, but Junichi wants to talk to Ayatsuji alone. He doesn't say anything at first, so Ayatsuji is about to leave, but he stops her with a hug and tells her that he loves her, but he also loves the stubborn girl he knew from the beginning, so she doesn't have to disappear. Ayatsuji can't help but cry and hits him a lot since she changed because of the argument they had that night, but Junichi is glad that she's still there, so Ayatsuji breaks down in tears in his arms. After that, she explains to him that as a child she was very disappointed that Santa did not exist, so she decided to do the job of Santa, and this is why she offers herself for the job of organizer of the festival so she can bring happiness to all who attend the festival at Christmas. But as wonderful as it may seem, she still has a lot of work to do since the children still do not look happy with their activities. Then Junichi tells her not to get discouraged since Christmas is not over yet and there are many other Christmases in which she can try to make many more people happy, so he asks her to also take care of making him happy. She laughs since the request is usually the other way around, but this doesn't matter, and they kiss again, but this time it's a promise of love. 10 years later, it's Christmas again. They have a beautiful daughter, and they take her to their high school festival to see the huge illuminated tree. Ayatsuji asks her husband if he is happy, and Junichi, smiling, says yes and wishes from the bottom of his heart that everyone can be happy on this day. In another possible scenario, a shy girl confesses her feelings. He doesn't know much that girl called Risa, but he accepts her feelings since she is quite pretty. Then she begins to cry of happiness. This shows him that she loves him so much, so they are about to kiss. But the bell rings and they have to leave it for the next day. Junichi looks forward to the next day and finally feels that he has overcome what happened to him 2 years ago and he was stood up. Now he has a pretty girlfriend. He asks Risa how she fell in love with him, and she tells him that she has been watching him for a long time, to the point that she knows how much he likes big breasts. Risa is a bit sad because her breasts are quite small, so Junichi tries to say that those are Yumehara's tastes, but Risa asks for time since she is doing her secret things to have more breasts in her development than has ahead. Junichi wants to introduce her to his friends, but Risa asks him not to tell anyone about their relationship, since that is the only condition she puts for them to be dating, and Junichi accepts it because he knows how in love she is with him. Then they start dating at night so they won't be seen, and Junichi take her to the park where that girl stood him up. Now he can make it a happy place with his new girlfriend. Time later, Junichi asks her to go to the Christmas festival together, but Risa isn't sure, so she asks him for time to think about it. She wants to go with him, but she can't, since she did terrible things to the girls who tried to date him. It turns out that she was watching him all this time, and when Haruka, Kaoru, Sei, Ai, Rihoko, and Ayatsuji started spending more time with him, she would intervene and show them a doctored picture of him with another girl as a couple. Now she knows that it would look bad for her to appear as his girlfriend when she pushed the other girls away by saying that he was already with someone else. On the other hand, one night, Junichi meets the girl who stood him up, Makihara, and he is surprised that she can speak to him normally despite what she did. But she tells him that she went to the place they agreed and he never appeared. She says that a classmate of theirs told her that he changed a place for the date at the last minute, but Junichi is surprised since he didn't know anything. On the day of the festival, Junichi goes to see Risa to ask her if she made up her mind, then she tells him that she can't publicly date him since she did terrible things. Then he asks what she is hiding from him, and Risa confesses everything she did. She was his classmate in middle school, and she was the one who told Makihara that their date was somewhere else because she wanted to protect him from her. Makihara planned to reject him in front of all their classmates to make fun of him, but Risa didn't realize that in the end he got hurt anyway. And since then, she drives away all the girls who get close to him because she distrusts them and think they are going to hurt him. Junichi is shocked to hear all this, and Risa leaves and promises to distance herself from him so as not to get in the way of the girls who will fall in love with him, but he stops her since in this short period of time he fell in love with her. Risa is moved to hear these words from Junichi, so she decides to fix her mistake herself and promises him that she will clear everything up with the girls she misleads so they can go to the festival together as a couple. One day after school, Haruka invites Junichi to eat, and they go to the restaurant where Kaoru works. He is happy since he never thought you would go eat with Haruka. She wants to eat something sweet and tells him to share a parfait, so he agrees and is glad that Kaoru wasn't the one to take their order, but is Kaoru the one bringing them the parfait. Haruka realizes that Kaoru is an acquaintance of him, so she decides to hide because she thinks it's fun to see what Junichi will say to justify him ordering the parfait of love, and she wasn't wrong since Kaoru wanted to know who he came with. Then Junichi sees how Haruka is having fun under the table, but it would be very strange to tell Kaoru that he is with the girl under the table, so he says that he came with Yumehara. Kaoru laughs and leaves, leaving him dejected, although at least he enjoys a love parfait with Haruka. One day, Junichi goes back home as usual, but he finds Kaoru dressed as Santa Claus, which surprises him because her outfit is quite short. It turns out that Kaoru wants to become independent, so she has 5 jobs. Although now that she gets along better with her stepfather, she begins to think that she will be able to stop working thanks to Junichi, because he convinced her to talk to him. However, Kaoru realizes that Junichi is seeing lower than he should, so she tries to sell him a cake, but she starts sneezing, so instead, she asks him to help her sell the cakes so he can share his warmth by being close to her. After several hours, they manage to sell everything, and he thinks that maybe it is a good time to ask her out for Christmas, but she thought the same thing and they speak at the same time, so he chickens out and ends up saying that he is leaving because they already finished there. Junichi's birthday arrives, but his family left home, so there is no gift or party, and this makes him sad, so he locks himself in his closet. Suddenly, he hears the doorbell. It is Sei, who has come to give him a birthday present. He invites her in without thinking that she would be nervous about being home alone. She gives him the gift that looked like an old book, but is a photo album of Sei. Mia had told her that he likes magazines in which girls appear posing sexually. Sei gets nervous because of his provocative face, so she tries to close the album, but she only manages to make them both fall down. It's the best gift he could have received, so he thanks her. Then he accompanies her back to her house and finds out that Muyo was the one who took these photos, so he starts blaming her for this awkward moment. Ai is a little down for not being in the starting team of the swimming club, so Junichi goes to see her, and they see each other for a while after their practices. Then he invites her to have a can of coffee and they talk normally, but he wants to cheer her up. So when her back is turned, he grabs her from behind and puts his hands in her pockets as he believes that the skinship could change her mood, but it is just embarrassing. Anyway, the inside of her pocket is very warm, so Junichi doesn't want to take his hands off her and even moves them, so Ai feels ticklish. Ai tells him to stop because she has to go shopping, and Junichi wants to continue by her side, so he goes shopping with her. She already seems more animated. One day, Junichi goes to the tea club. Ryoko is now the president of the club. She is really relaxed because the club is not in danger anymore. Then she asks him about a strange nail clipper that caught her attention. He explains that it is the best nail clipper that exists, and he can demonstrate it. Ryoko agrees and starts to remove her socks since her fingernails are short, but as soon as he touches her she is tickled and her heart begins to race. She feels like a princess and tells him that he should be a professional since he does it very well. But Junichi looks up a bit and realizes that he's in a position where he can see Ryoko's panties. She notices and gets nervous, but she can't move because otherwise he might cut badly, so he keeps clipping her nails with temptation right before his eyes. On their way home, Junichi and Ayatsuji smell something nice, which is a truck of freshly baked bread. Then Ayatsuji goes to buy some and comes back with a bunch of melon bread since she had used her act to look prettier, so the baker gives her a lot of free melon bread. She makes Junichi carry everything, so he can't eat, and it's Ayatsuji who has to feed him. But it feeds several times, so Junichi begins to think that he's not going to eat anything, which bothers Ayatsuji and ends up giving him more bread than he can chew. A month after the Christmas festival, Junichi dreams of Ayatsuji washing his back, but she slips, so he's about to see her naked body. But just at that moment, Mia wakes him up and he gets mad at her for doing it. Then he goes to school sad for not having been able to see the best moment of his dream. But Ayatsuji catches up with him and Junichi still doesn't believe that someone so intelligent is his girlfriend. The time comes to elect the new president of the student council and Ayatsuji is running. But what Junichi did not expect is that she would put him as vice president if she wins, and it turns out that Ayatsuji really liked how he helped her in the festival. So she believes that he is more than qualified for the position. Although this was not the only surprise, since another girl who was running for president, Kurosawa, also put him as her vice president, which could be interpreted as a declaration of love out loud. Ayatsuji interrogates Junichi, and he tells her that he doesn't even know her, so she calms down, but later while they are studying, he continues thinking and about Kurosawa. Maybe she is in love with him. But Ayatsuji hits him for being distracted while studying since she senses what he is thinking, so she explains that Kurosawa's thing is an attack on her, which relieves him a bit. Anyway, Ayatsuji isn't too worried because the next day the election committee will do a pre-election survey and she will show Kurosawa how far she is in terms of ability to get votes. To her bad luck, that doesn't happen. Ayatsuji is third in the pre-election poll and Kurosawa first. Then, Ayatsuji begins to think about what she can do to overcome this situation. So Ayatsuji and Junichi's friends make a lot of pamphlets to publicize her and start her campaign all over the school, just like the other candidates. After that, Junichi comes up with the idea of making a new poster of Ayatsuji, and since he is very insistent, she accepts and begins to pose as he tells her, although the poses are the same as the magazines he reads, so he gets nervous while taking photos. In any case, all their efforts paid off since Ayatsuji positioned very close to Kurosawa on the new survey. At this rate, Ayatsuji will manage to surpass her, so Kurosawa decides to play dirty. She cites Junichi behind the campus and spreads the gossip that she will confess her feelings to him. And she also makes sure that Ayatsuji finds out about this, so when Junichi goes to the agreed place, he starts to reject her. But Ayatsuji also arrives and Kurosawa press her body against his. Junichi realizes that they were being watched and Ayatsuji drags him to the shed. He tries to justify himself, but is taken by surprise as Ayatsuji kisses him. Junichi doesn't understand what's going on and Ayatsuji tells him that he shouldn't be so innocent because that trap was obvious, since Kurosawa just wanted to pretend to kiss him to try to make them fight and get out of the elections. Junichi promises to be more careful from now on, but this is not enough for Ayatsuji, so she makes him swear in exchange for another kiss. The day of the elections arrives and Junichi gave her a gift that gathered the signatures of the entire classroom showing their support, which ends up motivating Ayatsuji for the speech. Then her turn comes and before going on stage, she sticks to Junichi to promise him that she will give everything. After that, she gives her speech to try to get the last votes she lacks. Later, the results arrive and after a moment of great tension, they find out that Ayatsuji managed to win by a lot of difference. So in the classroom, they make a small celebration for her and also congratulate Junichi for being the new vice president. On the other hand, Monia is happy that Sei participated because it is a step for her to overcome her shyness. But the one who is not so happy is Kurosawa, since she did not like the results at all, for which she swears that one day she will steal Junichi from her as a revenge. After school, Junichi and Ayatsuji return home as she tells him not to relax since now he has to concentrate on his studies because she will not lower her expectations just because he can't keep up with her, and also he promised that he would always stay by her side. At that moment, a stray dog chases them and Junichi tries to play the hero by getting its attention, but he doesn't notice that he runs straight into the lake, so he ends up soaked. Then Ayatsuji takes him home so he doesn't catch a cold and tells him that she will wash his back as a reward for his brave act. So he begins to believe that it will be like the dream he had days ago, but Ayatsuji enters wearing the swimsuit. In any case, she's going to wash his back so he gets out of the tub, but he is totally naked, so she slapped him across the face. While she washes his back, he realizes that it feels much better than washing himself, but Ayatsuji asks him to never leave her side and never kiss another girl who is not her, and obviously he agrees and kisses her to confirm his love. Then the days go by and both continue as a happy couple until they become adults, where we already know how their happy story ends. Several months after Ryoko became the president of the tea club, she does not lose the old habits of falling asleep, unfortunately. She is still only Junichi's childhood friend, so Kane is a little disappointed since she thought that they had made some progress. Meanwhile, Junichi still doesn't lose the habit of watching porn videos thanks to his friend Yumehara, who gives them to him clandestinely. At the tea club, Ryoko tries to talk to Junichi, but he doesn't seem to be listening, so she realizes that he is sick. It turns out that he got heat stroke from staying up so late at night, but he doesn't want to talk about what he's been doing, so he asks if she's okay, although just looking looking at her makes him realize that she's been eating too much again. Ryoko can't believe it, so they go to the infirmary and weigh themselves. But Ryoko is embarrassed that Junichi sees her weight, so she asks him to turn around and then covers it so he doesn't find out what her true weight is. To change the subject, Ryoko reminds him that as children they also used to go to the infirmary, and he remembers that they always measured each other, and since she grew faster, he tried to beat her in other things like seeing who has the biggest chest, but obviously Ryoko won too. Junichi has very good memories of that time, so he tells her to relive them, and Ryoko agrees to let him measure her again, which makes him blush because of how much she has grown. Then they go to a park and Junichi is still tired from heat fatigue, and it turns out that he has been eating badly lately because his parents are not at home, and since neither Mia nor he knows how to cook, they were eating noodles and watermelon for dinner. Ryoko can't allow this, so she offers him to make the dinner for them, and he begs her to do it, so Ryoko rushes to her house to change clothes and go shopping. She is thinking about what to wear, but she realizes that it is another day in which she will see Jumeki, so she picks casual clothes and goes out. Suddenly, she meets the former members of the tea club. They are selling eel in their free time. Ryoko tells them that Junichi is sick, and she is going to make him dinner. So they offer her a dish from their stall. According to them, it has healing properties, and Ryoko believes that they are playing with her just like with Valentine's chow cream, but this time it's real. They give her a soup and other ingredients to make him a revitalizing food, since they hope that with this dinner, Junichi will activate his virility and finally take a step forward with Ryoko. On the way to Junichi's house, a classmate of Ryoko's named Makabe bumps into her, and seeing that she's pretty with casual clothes, he tells her to come with him because he has something to tell her. Meanwhile, Junichi was in a supermarket and he sees her, so he goes out to look for her. But Makabe corners Ryoko and tells her that she's very pretty, so he wants her to be his girlfriend. Ryoko says no since she doesn't know him well and it's too sudden. Besides, she already has someone she likes. Junichi was listening to everything. Ryoko arrives at Junichi's house before him, and Mia is surprised that they didn't run into each other. When he arrives, she gets nervous and he gets nervous too. Mia notices this, but they try to pretend that nothing is wrong, so Ryoko goes to cook the dinner. After that, Junichi tries to talk to her about what he heard, but he doesn't know how to say it, so he ends up asking a silly question, which doesn't make much sense. Then Ryoko tries to confess her feelings, but she doesn't dare either, so she just says that the food will be very tasty. As expected, the dinner is delicious. Junichi and Mia are satisfied for the first time in a long time. Suddenly, the phone rings and he knows that it is surely for Mia, so he sends her to answer it, and while they are alone, he tries again to talk to Ryoko, and she tries too. Now it is Mia who interrupts them, since she is happy because she's going to the amusement park with her friends. To celebrate, she tells them to have dessert, and they eat a lot of shaved ice. While Ryoko is bathing, Junichi goes to his room and sees a photo album that has many photos of the two of them through the years. After that, he goes to Maya's room to see if his clothes fit Ryoko, and he realizes again how big Ryoko's breasts are. Then Mia kicks him out. In the middle of the night, Mia wakes up half asleep because she wants to go to the bathroom after eating so much shaved ice, and Ryoko can't sleep. So when Mia goes back to sleep, Ryoko goes to Junichi's room, but he was also awake, so she goes down to the first floor to be with him. Neither of them is sleepy, so they start talking about the past and remember how much fun they had with the fireworks. So they relive those moments, and Ryoko again tries to tell him that she loves him, but accidentally burns him with her sparkler, and they end up one on top of the other. This makes them nervous, so they separate quickly, but Junichi musters the courage to confess that he likes her, and he didn't realize before since they were always together. Now he is sure of his feelings, so Ryoko does the same and tells him that she has always loved him and wants to always be with him, so they kiss in the dark. The next day, Mia wakes up and realizes that the two of them cannot see each other so as not to arouse Maya's suspicions, although this is even more suspicious, so she keeps asking what is going on between the two of them. It's been almost a year since Junichi and Aang have been dating. They rarely see each other, so he appreciates the moments when they are together, since he is studying hard to be a good man for Ai. And now she is the captain of the swimming club, so a new task has been added to her load of chores. Anyway, Ai is always going to wake up Junichi, so he won't be late and threatens to get him out of bed. But this time, he ends up putting her to bed since he's very tired from studying. After that, they go to school and have a normal day with Yumehara beckons Junichi to help him to get a girlfriend, and he's studying after school, but he craves to see Ai. So he goes to the swimming club and notices that there are new girls, so he focuses his attention on Ai to avoid temptation, and she sees him. Then he thinks that she will greet him in a sweet way, but it is forbidden for a man to enter the pool while they are there, so the girls surround him to scold him. Ai's friends think that he has learned his lesson, so Ai is about to release him, but Mia wants to see him suffer more and tells her that her brother was watching the other girls, which earns him an extra scolding from Ai. Later, she agrees to forgive him only if he goes with her to do the shopping for dinner and not to do it again because he should already know the rules of the swim club. The next day, Junichi is in the infirmary due to exhaustion, so Ai goes goes to visit him, and he remembers that Maya fell asleep when she was on her father's belly, and he wants her to do the same with him since supposedly he will rest better. She doubts a bit because it's quite embarrassing, but since they're in the infirmary and can cover themselves with curtains, she agrees to fulfill his wish, so he falls asleep between her legs. Later, Ai is excited because Christmas Eve is soon and they will have a date, but she did not count that Junichi will have an intensive camp for his exam, which begins precisely on December 23, so he apologizes for not being able to go out with her on Christmas Eve. So Ai pretends that nothing is wrong and says that she also has a lot of things to do on that day, so everything is fine, but in reality she's quite affected by not being able to go out with Junichi. At least she wants to give him a present, so she buys him a blanket to use in the camp, but she can't find him anywhere, and to top it off she listens to Kaoru with Tanaka talking about how nice is dating on Christmas. The next day she can't see him either since the cram camp's people took him to the camp early for having the lowest grade, so Ai walks alone and sad back to her house while she remembers all the beautiful moments she spent with Junichi, and no matter how hard she tries, she can't help but want to cry for being so far apart. The festival begins and everything is going great for the swimming club. Then the first year girls take over the booth and Ai can go rest, but she has nothing to do, so she sits where she had been with Junichi last year, and she realizes that she feels very lonely without him, so she begins to cry, which surprises her since she feels that she has become weak without realizing it. After the festival, Mia invites A to her Christmas party that she will have with Sei, but I forgot to buy a gift for Ikuo, so she tells them to go ahead of her and she will go later. After that, Ai walks around the city and remembers that today she should be with Junichi as promised. Then she sees a toy that makes her nostalgic and starts crying again, but this time Junichi appears behind her. It turns out that he escaped from the cram camp after finishing all his exams because he couldn't go another second without seeing her. Then they call Mia to cancel her plan and she realizes that Junichi is with her, so Mia tells them that there is no problem and is happy for her. They go to buy the gift for A's little brother and leave it on his bed, so now they are free to have their date. Junichi begins to freeze to death since he forgot his coat, so Ai wants to give him her coat, but he does not accept it. Instead, he takes her to a store and buys her a beautiful white coat that he saw the other day and thought would look good on her. He ends up wearing A's coat, which he finds funny because it is too small for him, but this is not an impediment for them to spend a fun night in their date. Then they walk aimlessly enjoying each other's company, but they end up around the romantic hotels, which makes him nervous, although he realizes that Ai does not refuse to enter one of these, so he is about to tell her, except that they see the teacher there, who is coming out of a massage parlor. Out of embarrassment, they run away and start laughing at the surreal moment they just experienced. Ai confesses to Junichi that she is afraid that he is far away since she feels lonely and thinks that this will continue even in college, so that tells her not to worry because he will always be by her side and will do everything possible to get time and be by her side, just like he did now. He has to go back to camp anyway, so A agrees to wait a little longer for him and they kiss while the snow falls softly on them. Then they go to his house to watch the fireworks and promise each other to take care of themselves in the years to come. Before the start of summer break, Junichi asked Kaoru to help him draw a landscape, and since Kaoru felt daring that day, she sat between his legs and began to draw so enthusiastically that she did not stop massaging his crotch with her, all this in front of their classmates. After that, Tanaka talks to Kaoru and she tells her that they have not reached anything in all this time. When they are alone, they always do the same as always. Tanaka tells Kaoru that it would be good if they do something different, like a trip. Then, Kaoru mentions it to Junichi, and he thinks it's a good idea, but he doesn't have money, so they decide to start a part-time job. So they go to work at a play at the amusement park, but Kaoru takes the opportunity to annoy him by changing the script so the other monster can hit him more, so Junichi does the same and ends up taking over the play to trap Kaoru in his tentacles, although they end up firing them for the script change that they pulled out of their sleeve, and to top it off they reduce their pay as punishment. After that, Junichi gives up with their summer trip, but Kaoru still does not give up, and she does not hesitate to look for another job to save money, although it was not necessary since they found a bus tour that was cheap, so they decided to take this tour to go on a trip as they wanted. After getting ready, they rushed to the bus. Kaoru prepared a bunch of limited edition goodies to try on the trip. She asks Junichi if he has somewhere he wants to stay, but he says he is fine just being with her. Both get nervous about how cheesy this sounds. Junichi changes the subject and wants to punish her for having changed the script, so he puts a sweet in his mouth and tells her to eat chocolate part only and not the cookie, with her mouth without touching his lips, so Kaoru makes the effort, but they move a lot because it's not easy, so everyone turns to see what's happening, so Junichi and Kaoru turn red due to the misunderstanding. After a while, the bus stops and they have a 20-minute break. The passengers can go down and buy or eat whatever they want, so Kaoru buys a bunch of regional sweets with weird flavors and leaves all the things on their bus seats covered with a blanket, but as they have plenty of time left, they decide to enter an eel stall, since it is well known for its dishes. Meanwhile, the bus driver confused them with the sweets covered by the blanket, so the bus leaves without them. Junichi and Kaoru leave the stall and realize that they have been left. They try to call the travel agency and Mia, but neither of them answers, so they realize that they are alone and with nothing they can do. To their good luck, a truck passes by and the driver driver is a nice guy. He says that he can drop them off near an inn he knows, which is near a train station, so they can go back, although all the way they are fighting over. So the driver calmed them down a bit, telling them that it shows that they love each other a lot, to love each other enough to have arguments, which embarrasses them a lot. Then he also mentions the hot springs, for which Junichi is really excited since it's something that he has been wanting for a long time. But when they arrive at the inn, they are scared by how dark the entrance is. Even Kaoru, who normally loves horror houses, is afraid of being in a forest in the middle of the night. So she sticks to Junichi until they meet the owner of the inn, who inadvertently scares them too. She tells them that they can bathe freely because they are the only ones staying. But on the way to the hot springs, they see an old woman with a knife, so they panic as if it were a horror movie, but she was just cooking the dinner. After that, they enter at the hot springs separated, but Kaoru sees something strange around her, so she yells and Junichi goes to see what's going on, but he was naked, so she hits him with buckets for being a pervert. But she wants to keep him close, so she tells him to stay with her, but with his back turned so he doesn't see anything. Suddenly, a monkey appears and takes her bra, so she stands up and Junichi turns around to see what's happening, but ends up seeing her totally naked, so they both turn red as tomatoes, and she hits him with more buckets. Later, they go to eat and end up satisfied, then they go to sleep and Kaoru tries to talk to him about their relationship. She wants to clarify the line between friends and lovers, but he was already asleep. The next day, Junichi cannot find his purse, so Kaoru has to pay for the lodging and is left with almost no money. He realizes that he left his purse on top of the public telephone last night. Now they are without money. Because of this, they start arguing again and Kaoru gets upset since she feels that he is blaming her. Suddenly, the path forks in two and Kaoru goes to the left path without asking him. She says that she will follow her instincts. Junichi doesn't want to leave her alone, so he walks behind her. To their bad luck, it starts to rain, so they run until they find a bus stop. There they have a moment to think with a cool head, for which Kaoru apologizes because she feels that all this is her fault because her ideas were what caused them to be dropped off by the bus, but Junichi also feels guilty for not controlling the situation better, so they both accept their part of the blame and reconcile. Then an old man tells them that the bus stop is in disuse, so they have to look for another way to return. After that, Junichi calls his home again and Mia tells him that the travel agency is taking care of their luggage, but she doesn't let Junichi speak, and his time is running out and he has no money left to call her back, and the call is cut off. Then he tells Kaoru that it would be a good idea to look for a police station to ask for help, but Kaoru wants to hang out since they are at the beach, so they start playing and Kaoru realizes that it doesn't matter where she is or what she is doing. If it's with him, they will have fun. As they roll across the sand, they kiss with a beautiful sunset lighting them up. Suddenly, Yumehara sees them from his boat since he was training to prepare sushi away from home. He is their salvation. Now they have a way to return home. Back to school, Kaoru thanks Tanaka for recommending the trip since their relationship is clearer now. Then she gives Junichi a portrait of their trip for our assignment. Suddenly, she sits on his lap to give it a few finishing touches. Junichi is blushing because they are in the classroom, but she tells him that's how they are, and he agrees. Almost 10 months after Junichi began dating Sei, he continues recording her to show how pretty she is. But something that has changed for the better is Sei's shyness. Now she can talk to the cafeteria ladies without a problem, and she gets along well with the puppy that scared her months ago. Although with the big ones, it is still a step to overcome. In her job, she became quite popular, and Mia tells her brother that not only in her job, since after the couple's contest, the boys set their sights on Sei, and now she is one of the most popular girls in school. The next day, Junichi begins to feel the eyes that are on the two of them since unfortunately, he is not the most outstanding in school, so they do not believe that he is her boyfriend. So Junichi is willing to prove that he is her boyfriend, so he tells her that he will buy her the lunch, but he doesn't know exactly what she likes, so he keeps thinking about it at the ticket machine and Kaoru has to rush him since there are many people waiting. Then he plays it safe and asks for one of each bread so he cannot make a mistake, but his suffering does not end there since he does not know what sauces to put on her omelet and can't choose a salad either, so he asks Ryoko, but he dismisses her opinion because she is thinking of a salad that is not too fattening and Sei doesn't have those problems. The cafeteria lady ends up being his savior. She serves him everything that Sei likes because she always sees them together. Then Sei comes over to carry the food to the table since she has a lot of practice in this from her job. From now on, Junichi decides to pay more attention to her because it doesn't seem fair that she knows what he likes but he doesn't know anything about her tastes, so he writes down everything she says that she likes it. Later that day, they go to a shrine. Sei wants to make a wish, although she doesn't want to tell Junichi her wish, no matter how much he insists, which leaves an insecurity planted in his heart. The weekend arrives. Junichi is watching the videos that he took from Sei and Mia comes scared. She telling him that Sei is attending a wedding, so perhaps her parents are forcing her to get married since they are rich, and he gets upset, and they run to the hotel where the wedding will take place and look for her everywhere. everywhere until they find her with another boy, so Juniki runs to separate them, but he falls and Sei is surprised to see him there. After that, Sei explains that she told Mia about the wedding of her puppies, so Juniki realizes that Mia understood something else. He apologizes to her, since he thought she would get married and her parent would take her away from him. Sei is glad that Junichi has gone so far for her, but she promises that she will never marry someone else because her wish that she made in the shrine was that the two of them would always be together. Now their bond is even stronger. At the school, Muya tells Juniki that Sei has big trouble. It turns out that the students chose Sei as president of the festival committee. She doesn't know what to do, so Juniki returns to the role of her instructor to teach her everything she must do. This excites so much. Sei has to learn how to do the job of the festival committee's president, so she doesn't spend much time with Juniki. So he starts to feel lonely, and Muya tells him that he should try his best just like Sei, which ends up affecting him a lot because he also thinks the same thing. Then he comes up with a great idea. The next day, he proposes Sei recording a documentary with the progress of the festival preparation. Sei thinks it's a great idea because it will also allow him to be close to her, although Ayatsuji warns her not to get too distracted since she has a lot of pending tasks. At lunch, Juniki runs to the infirmary because Sei is there. He is really worried for her, but she was only there to rest for a while due to lack of sleep, so he calms down a bit and Sei goes back to work. As the days go by, he records Sei while she works as well as all the conversations. Time after, Sei starts to make mistakes because of having so much work, so Juniki asks Ayatsuji for advice since he feels useless at her side for not being able to do anything. So she tells him that he just has to be by her side because as much as she tries to do everything alone, it's always good to have people you trust around you. Then Juniki realizes what he has to do, so he goes to Sei and shows her all the things she has achieved so far, managing to raise her morale. Also tells her to ask him for anything she needs since he will always be there to help her, so Sei tells him to keep recording her closely since that's all she needs to continue. After this, Sei solves the problems she had with the different clubs in the school. The day of the Christmas festival arrives and Sei inaugurates it perfectly. Thanks to her efforts, the festival is a success like every year. Later, Junichi goes to congratulate her and Sei gives him a Christmas present. He feels bad since he has nothing for her, but Sei just wants to give him a kiss because they haven't kissed for a long time, although she doesn't settle for just one. 8 years later, they form a happy family with a young daughter and a baby on the way. Junichi continues to record her to keep precious memories of them. Days after the festival, Junichi has a date with Haruka. Everyone around them are amazed at how beautiful she is, and they are surprised to see that she has a boyfriend so ordinary like him. Then Haruka tells him that she wants him to meet her parents and shows him a window displaying bridal gowns. He is speechless. The next day, Haruka tells Hibiki about it and she is surprised at how direct Haruka was suddenly. Haruka sees in a magazine the chapel where her grandparents got married. She loves the story of their marriage because he proposed to her grandmother just when she graduated from school. So Hibiki thinks that maybe that's why she showed him a wedding dress, but Haruka immediately denies it because she would never dare to ask for something like that. At that moment, Junichi appears, so he asks what they are talking about, so Haruka saying that they were talking about Haruka's cousin, who looks just like her but with blonde hair. He is surprised to hear of a blonde Haruka, although Haruka came up with a great idea after talking about weddings. She decides to make a simulation of their life that they will have in the following years. They recreate the wedding with Hibiki as a priest, but omitting the kiss part because it would be too explicit for a rehearsal. Junichi knows that after the wedding comes the long-awaited night of newlyweds, but obviously this is not recreated, so they skip ahead to the part in which they find out that Haruka is pregnant and Hibiki acts as a doctor who gives them the good news. Then, they recreate a dinner of their happy family. Hibiki has the most embarrassing role so far since she has to pretend to be the daughter of these two. She receives him with a sweet voice and asks her daddy how he asked her mommy to marry him. Junichi gets nervous, so he avoids the question like a champ, but this annoys Haruka, so she doesn't talk to him on the way home. Suddenly, Haruka's cousin Jessica appears and Juniki is surprised that they are indeed identical. She tries to ask Juniki if he is going to propose to Haruka. Haruka gets upset and stops her. That night, Haruka explains to Jessica that she does not want to tell Juniki that there is tradition in her family, but apparently there are more things that Haruka has not told him, so Jessica recommends her to tell him because she does not have much time left before her graduation. The next day, Juniki talks with Haruka as usual, but she starts acting strange and distant, so he is worried because Kaoru thinks that he has been dumped by his girlfriend and spreads the rumor around the school. As he was telling Ryoko that this was not true, Jessica calls him at school. She wants to wish him luck so he can beat all of Haruka's suitors as many people in England loved Haruka. This worries Juniki, so he goes to find Haruka and takes her by the hand to the shed as he has to make it clear that he will not give up, no matter how many Englishmen are in love with her. Then, Haruka laughs since those boys loved her when they were children. She says that she only belongs to him, which makes him blush. Haruka has good memories of this shed, so she gets nostalgic and Juniki tries to relive these memories, but she doesn't want him to like her again because he tickled her so much last time. Later, he apologizes for being jealous and says that he wants to ask her something. Haruka is happy and ready to hear that question, but it's not what she thinks. He asks her if she wants to go to his home. Haruka accepts, so she takes the opportunity to pretend that they are a married couple. He is a husband that is returning home from work, and she is a lovely wife that wants to pamper him. To continue with this this game, Haruka starts cooking dinner and she asks him where his parents and Mia are. Then Junichi tells her that no one is going to return home because they have gone out, so Haruka decides to stay with him all night. Junichi is in heaven because Haruka is going to cook for him, and then they can do all kinds of things that he has always imagined, but he never believed they would come true, although her food is not that good. Then they start to play a bit in the kotatsu and he forces her to give up in the tickle battle, but after this, she ends up sweating a lot, so she gets into the shower first. Then Junichi remembers that Haruka had told him at the hotel that she would have liked him to spy on her, so he gathers the courage to go in and spy on her, but Haruka finishes before he can make up his mind. She comes out wearing a negligee that reveal her feminine figure, so he turns around to maintain control, although Haruka tells him that the intention of those negligee is to be revealing. So he turns his head excitedly to delight himself, but Haruka had already changed for another pajama since he insisted so much. After that, they go to sleep and Junichi can't sleep, so they talk for a while and Haruka confesses that she will go to England after her graduation since her grandparents have been asking for it for a long time. This makes him sad. The next day, he realizes that Haruka's nostalgic attitude makes sense now, so he goes to see Hibiki to ask if she knew, and it turns out to be true because she had commented on it a long time ago. She tells him that if he really loves her, he can't sit idly by, and asks him what he's willing to do for her. Since Haruka is not at school, he calls at her home where Jessica answers. He asks her if Haruka is going to an English college, but Jessica evades the question and says that she will not pass the phone to her cousin since she does not want him to get in the way of Haruka's return to England, although she will not interfere too much because if he can convince her, she will let Haruka do what she wants. On the way home, he sees the window displaying wedding dresses and a great idea occurs to him. The day of the graduation of the third-year students has arrived. The teacher is about to introduce Atsuji to give the valedictory speech, but there is a change of plans and she says the name of Junichi. He goes on stage and starts his speech normally, but suddenly he begins to say how much he loves Haruka and mentions all the moments they have spent together. He doesn't want her to go to England, and to show his love, he proposes to her in front of everyone. Haruka jumps with happiness and accepts without thinking twice. They kiss lovingly, and everyone celebrates Junichi's success. Even Jessica, who doesn't know why Junichi thought that Haruka was going to study in England since her trip is only for a week, but anyway she feels that pushing him a bit had good results. Sometime later, they celebrate their wedding and begin their married life in which they are very happy, as we already know.